Long-awaited video about radionics and how far I've kind of like got with this stuff, because people have been talking about it and requesting it, and they want to understand. Firstly, from my understanding, what is radionics? Radionics is a form of like Reiki healing or spiritual healing, using devices as a means of delivery of the hypothetical energy. How it's supposed to operate is through having an input, having an output, and running some power through the device. There are other devices which are unpowered. This can be treated as an unpowered device. In that respect, it becomes a form of, how should I put it? A form of suggestion. Okay, so let's say I've set things up on here with what I want to achieve, what I want it done to, and I've just let it run. But I've had to put a lot of thought into what's called the witness sample, which is the target, and the symbolism of the target, like crazy from what I understand. Possibly also using DNA in the form of human hair with the bulb still attached, or fingernails, or a drop of blood on blotting paper. Okay, that's supposed to contain the DNA link, the energetic link, the holographic universe type link between whatever's happening here and the person or thing or situation or place you're trying to affect. That's part of what it's about. And on the input, you would then put symbols for what you want to achieve. So let's say, I don't know, increase wealth or reduce disease or something, and some variety of well-designed symbolism which communicates that effectively. And strangely enough, there is an overlap now with not only Lesser Key of Solomon type occultism, but also chaos magic and that sort of stuff when creating what should go into the input. So sigillation, seals from the Lesser Key of Solomon, representations of herbs, crystals, and all the rest of that can be put here. On the various downloadable rate books, as they're called in inverted commas, okay, which is for devices which can have more dials. There's numerous numbers, right, and series of numbers, and you can enter the numbers in here, and that's supposed to then be a representation of what could be the input going to the output. Alternatively, if you haven't got a witness sample here, you can dowse for a rate for what your witness sample is. So you're using a mind image of what the target is, very well constructed and using good visualization, because this is just a tool for the actual occult work which you're doing inside your head, inside your body, inside your energy fields. And this is therefore like an extension of that, or a physical representation of that. There are people who believe very substantially in the materials that the radionic device is made from, having some variety of energetic positivity, which can then assist. All right, it's almost like the device itself becomes like a form of temple. It becomes that something which seems to give you that feeling of tranquil, reverent, high frequency, whatever it is. Okay, it becomes like almost like a work of religion in its own right. And there are some people who overlap religion with radionics and treat this as a way of enhancing their prayers, which might sound a bit odd and a bit weird. A little bit more about radionics. Since there was a court case that was won by, I think it was, the Radionics Association in the UK, it is legal for a qualified radionics practitioner to practice radionics as a discipline and as a healing discipline in the UK. At the moment, at the time of writing, unless of course things change and the unpleasant people who run the country and run the world decide that things should not be that way. That's just the way things are. But at the moment, in this period in history, these devices exist. All of the stuff you got here, as you can see, it's from Bacana Labs, because this stuff is compatible with Spooky 2. Seeing as I'm already quite heavily invested in Spooky 2, it made sense to me to get devices which would be compatible with it. However, at some point I do want to save up and get the personal unit from KRT at some point. However, we're currently in the cost of living crisis. That thing's bloody expensive, plus of course the cost of shipping. So, there's going to be issues there. Right, now let's have another look at why these things are plugged into a frequency generator. Within each one of these things here, there is a coil, a specially designed coil. And a specially designed coil which helps to create the scalar effect. And it creates the scalar effect through waveform collapse, because the coil doubles over itself. in some way, so that there can be a moment of waveform collapse and therefore the creation of scalar energy. So thinking about it like this, you've got a device which is resonating at the same frequency because of the frequency generator. You've got a scalar field being generated on your input plate, either that or that. This is just an extension so I can put bigger things on it, okay. And then you've got your output. And your output, let's say it's a bit of your fingernail, drop of your blood on blotting paper, whatever. So that's set up with all the dials turned to 0. We can, from our understandings of how energy operates, we'll be delivering some of the, cute pussy time, okay. Some of the effects of whatever that is will be delivered to that. And that being an efficient representation, be it a photograph, DNA, and so on and so forth, of the target location and person, will then bring a percentage or some of the energy of that to that particular person. That's the theory, and that's the understanding, and that's the way it operates. If you don't have the extension plates, you don't need them, you can just use the input and output on that. Now, what is this thing over here? This is a tool for dowsing. This is called a stick pad. It has a very smooth glass face. It has the coil underneath it. Okay, so it's there for some purpose. You got your fingers on there, maybe you'll put 2 fingers on there, make a little circular movement, and then when you get a yes response, it will seem to stick. Alright? That takes practice. And I'm building up skills. I'm not brilliant at it, but I'm building up skills on that. You can also use a dowsing pendulum held over your output plate. And then you can divine that way as to what is the relevant dial code for whatever it is you're dealing with. Let's say you've got, a crystal here. And it's a crystal you borrowed from a friend and you want to give it back to your friend, but you want to use the effect of that crystal. So you put the crystal on there, hold your pendulum over your output plate, and whilst you're doing so, see when you get the reaction, and then you get the dials tuned to whatever the pendulum is telling you. Or if not the pendulum, then the stick pad, which is probably better because it's quicker, it seems a bit more reliable, and therefore is a better means of dowsing. And also if you're doing any form of yes-no questioning, that sort of stuff with various different things, you can always use a stick pad for that. So for some of you experimenters out there, I don't see any reason why you shouldn't use a stick pad as opposed to something like that, if you felt so inclined. Okay? And a stick pad, from a symbolic point of view, doesn't need the wires and the cables, it's just a smooth surface. And some people do try and get stick responses from dowsing on things like a piece of packing tape on a box or on a credit card in their wallet or anything with a smooth surface to see whether they can get a yes-no reaction. Let's say you're going into a health food store or a bookshop, and you want to work out which of these 2 supplements or 2 books is better for you. Then why don't you just try using dowsing using a stick response, which you can do with the tips of your fingers on a smooth surface in your pocket. Alright, so this is not the radionic practitioner, that's you. Okay, that is you. Does that make sense? Okay. Now let's have a look at the other thing over here, which is this. This is called the Peggity board, and it's based upon a design from Darrell Butcher. So instead of having the numbers 0 to 10 there on a turnable Bakelite dial, we have pegs, 0 there and 10 over there. So if you've looked up something on a rate book which has a number of 2, 3, 4, 5, then another one which is 1, another number which is 0, and another number which is 9. Then what you place there becomes the sigillation, okay, the representation of whatever is there, of whatever it is you're looking at. Let's say there's a herb, let's say it's wormwood. You go to the library, you find out about wormwood, maybe you try some, you see what it tastes like and feels like, you do as much research about wormwood as you can, then you get busy with either stick pad or dowsing pendulum. Is the first number 0? Is it 1? 2? Oh, I've got a stick response there, so therefore, okay, the first number will then be 2. That will be the way in which you'd do that. So you can choose how many numbers will be there. How many numbers am I going to have? Is it 1, 2, 3, 4, okay, 5. Something like that. You get the kind of feeling, don't you? Okay. So that's just a way of getting the numbers. But the numbers themselves, the way I understand it, are in fact just numbers. What they symbolize and what they mean to you in accordance with your meditation, visualization, and research is what's most important, because you're taking that and you're putting it into the device. Now, for those of you who've got a background with different forms of prayercraft and ritual magic and all that kind of fun stuff, you would probably want to do like an energy raising exercise beforehand. Things like casting your circle, doing chanting, meditation, all that kind of stuff, because you're the practitioner, not the device. We love devices. Us humans love devices. Men love devices. Men love devices with knobs and buttons and dials. This is a guy thing, okay? Very much so. But it's also a human thing, because in the 21st century we operate things with buttons and knobs and dials, and we don't tend to operate things using candles and incense and bells and all kinds of things, unless of course you're in a particular theological culture which uses that. But you should be able to see that the forces that you're dealing with using radionics is different in one respect, and that is you've got a device which has a frequency going through it, which you can choose through, let's say, the Spooky 2 database on your computer, which can also add to the effect. Now, so long as you're using the radionic shell within the Spooky 2 software, you can then put any other of the frequency sets involved in it, which means that it'll then start acting a bit like a Spooky 2 remote, because this has got similar functions and features as the Spooky 2 remotes, but not perfectly. It's more designed specifically for the radionic effect. Just like an oil lamp is designed for using the fuel to generate light, and a paraffin heater is designed to use the fuel to generate heat more, if you get my drift. Alright, this is a device which is more specific to the application. Now, the question then you may be asking yourself is, does it work? You know full well from experiences with myself that I don't tend to use language that black and white. This is a tool for moving energy. It's not a tool for controlling the entire universe and the minds and bodies of everyone in it. Alright? It's only as effective as your energy being sent through the device. What I would say is that because it's a scalar device, just like Spooky 2 remotes, which I rely upon quite a lot for my own self-healing, it's not bound by range. Okay, it's not bound by range. So you can deliver the energy to anyone on the face of the planet, provided of course you've got a suitable witness sample on your output plate. Output, okay? So, where can you go with this? Nearly anywhere. I mean, if you're watching my channel, you're probably a person who has an interest in either divination, stick bad, or healing, right? Or occultism, which is also all this stuff. If you read books by people like Peter Redati and also stuff by Charles Cosmanio, you'll understand there's lots of visualization and chakra openings and other fun things which happens when you're attempting to do a form of radionics or ritual magic or all the rest of that. But these things aren't as, let's say, difficult for anyone who comes into your house to look at, as opposed to other tools we might want to use. Alright, so if you want to keep your craft, in inverted commas, nice and secret, radionic devices could be a way forward for you. Alright, other thing I'll mention is this. This is a photographic infrared camera light. I often put that on the retort stand, okay, and shine that down here, because Daryl Butcher said that you need to have downpouring onto the surface. This thing has been designed so the pegs are really, really black and really, really stark. So there's a sense that some light will be absorbed and some light will be reflected, and therefore that's another way of keeping the awareness on the technology. All right, keeping your awareness on what you've already done in the deep subconscious mind, as well as to, if there is a physical effect on the energies using downpouring of light, then that will have an effect too. Okay. So can you see now the process of the creation of your rates, whether you dowse it yourself or whether you get it from a book, is very similar to the process of sigillation. Can you see that with radionics and radionic equipment, all right, you can use any culturally appropriate symbolism that you have developed and devised or have come across to go on your input plate for what you want to achieve. And on your output plates, that's where you have your witness sample. A photograph of your garden if you're attempting to do something horticultural, a photograph of a person if you're trying to affect the person, whatever. All right, but as far as I'm concerned, like, that's a target. And if you're firing a gun, or if you're firing a bow and arrow or a slingshot catapult, you've got to have a good target. And a target which you can recognize and your senses can recognize, so if you know what I mean. So therefore, your witness sample has got to be pretty damn good in order for you to get that message across. That would be my thinking, but it's possible also that it is your attention on the target which makes the work. But you've got a lot of things to take into account. Good definition of what you want done, your visualization, your understanding of that being delivered through a symbol. You've done your meditation, you've done your chakra openings, you've done your visualization of light emanating from your body and drawing the forces of the universe into your body. Send it into the device. Okay? You have to be being very attentive to your witness sample and what that means. Okay? And then tuning the rates to try and get a more accurate result, enhanced or made effective using your dowsing through your stick pad. Alright, so that's the basic video on radionics tools and the rest of it. The rest has to be up to you because we all explore this stuff very differently and we all perceive this stuff in very different ways. Alright, so maybe you start off from a psychological placebo paradigm and then you work up from there. And then sometimes something will happen which will make you think, ooh, that was a bit weird. And that's a good thing. So there you go. That's my video on radionics. Hope that makes some sense to you. Hope I explained myself well to you. I don't know whether I have or not. There's a comment section down there and you can say, hey Nick, you're really, really good at that, or you're really, really bad at that, or whatever you want. And of course, don't forget to give me a thumbs up and click on the bell icon. As it says, reaching over to the side to get a bell which you can ring to say, hey man, click the bell. And don't forget, of course, to subscribe, because more World of the Weird stuff is going to come out from me periodically, because it seems to want to. Alright, there we go. Your tool for spiritual warfare, spiritual healing, radionics, dowsing, basically you name it. And it doesn't look too odd. Alright, it's not like I've got a whopping great goat skull encrusted with gold and gems on a stick in the middle of my bedroom, and people will look at it and think, he's a bit strange. Instead, I've just got these things lying around and people don't know what I'm doing or why I'm doing it.